In 2018, 21-year-old Jake Patterson is on his way to work at a cheese factory in Wisconsin. He'd only been working there for a couple of days, and this is his third day on the job. He's the kind of typical guy leading a typical life in Wisconsin. While driving his Ford Taurus, he comes to a stop behind a school bus where middle school kids are getting on the bus. While he's sitting there, he looks up and he sees for the first time in his life a blonde-haired, green-eyed girl who ended up being 13-year-old Jayme Closs. As he's sitting there watching Jayme, who he doesn't know in person, get on the bus, he has this realization that she is going to be the girl that he takes. He actually says that. While sitting behind the wheel, he realized right then and there that she's the one he's gonna take. And so, a guy with no criminal history, sitting there and coming up with this plan of how he's gonna abduct this girl, and he put a ton of effort into planning out this abduction. So let's talk about Jake's plan. He takes his father's Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun, which is a very commonly purchased weapon. He assumed that because it is so widely purchased, and it would be hard to track. He also takes a couple of slugs, so he got his father's weapon. Then he goes and purchases a balaclava, a whole head mask from Walmart. He shaves his head, shaves his beards, so that there wouldn't be any hairs for forensic evidence at the crime scene. This is all so premeditated. He went out and purchased gloves and wiped his gloves all so they wouldn't have prints on them. He purchased steel-toed boots and dark jeans and a dark jacket. He plans on keeping Jayme in the trunk, so he cut the cord inside of his vehicle because he didn't want any access to the trunk unless he had the key. He disconnected the dome light inside of his Ford Taurus to conceal him much better. He's really thinking hard about how he's going to do this. He was going to go in that house. He's going to take Jayme, and he had his big plan. 2 separate times, Jake tried unsuccessfully to abduct Jayme. He drove to their house the first time, and there were cars in the driveway, so he got spooked, and he leaves. He comes back, and he's about to drive up the driveway when lights come on, so he leaves again. But on October 15th, 2018, unfortunately, he was successful. It was around midnight when Jake Patterson rolls into the Close family's driveway, and inside of this very modest home, Jayme was sleeping with her dog Molly, and Molly hears the car pull into the driveway and starts barking, and that wakes up Jayme. Jayme looks out and sees a car she doesn't recognize. It's the middle of the night, so she runs to her parents' room and alerts them. Jayme's father, James, goes to the front door with a flashlight. Meanwhile, Denise, that's Jayme's mother, and Jayme retreat into the bathroom, where they shut the door. They sensed that this was potentially going to be a home invasion, and certainly they were right. So they actually barricade the door with a dresser that was in there, and they get in the tub, and they shut the curtains. So James is at the front door, and he watches Jake Patterson get out of his car, calmly walk up the steps to the front door. At this time, James is thinking that perhaps this is the police, and so when Jake arrives at the door and starts banging on the door, James shines his light out through the window to get a peek at him, then moves over to the door itself, where there's a little tiny window on the door, and he looks through, shining the light, and he says, "Show me your badge." And unfortunately, it was at the same time that Jake raises his shotgun and pulls the trigger, shoots right to the glass, hits James, and James dies immediately. Back in the bathroom, Jayme would later say that when she heard that shotgun blast, she knew that her father was dead, and Denise, her mother, knew that as well, because immediately, Denise picks up her phone and calls 911. As she's talking to the dispatcher, who said that there were no police in the area, to further confirming that this was definitely not the police because they didn't see that interaction at the door they just heard. Jake at the front door is trying to bust in the door. He can't do it, so he takes a shotgun, ejects a spent round, and then puts a slug through the doorknob, making it come wide open. He pushes it open, steps over the body of James, and begins to search the house. The house is empty. Every door is open except one, and it's the bathroom door, where Denise and Jayme are hiding. In the bathroom, Jake begins to try to push the door open. He can't do it, and finally he just starts trying to smash the door in, and after 10 to 15 blows, he actually managed to split the top half of the door open because the dresser was blocking the lower half. He goes into the bathroom and he rips down the shower curtain, and there is Denise, bear hugging and protecting her daughter Jayme in the tub. Jake hands the duct tape to the mother Denise and tells her to put duct tape over the mouth and the hands of her daughter. She refuses. She's protecting her daughter. Jake sets his shotgun down, pushes the knees aside, and does it himself. And then, after getting Jayme out of the tub, he picks his shotgun up again, aims it at the mother, and he pulls the trigger, and he kills the mother. He picks up Jayme, and she's only about 5 foot and 100 pounds. He drags her out to his car, opens up the trunk of his Taurus, puts her in, shuts it, and he's on his way. He was in the house for a total of 4 minutes. He would say in his confession that, as he's driving away about 20 seconds after departing the house, he saw all the cop cars coming down the road. And actually, police officers would say they remembered a Taurus yielding to the police cruisers as they came. He makes his way around them and off he goes. And Jayme would say she remember hearing the sirens, and then they fade as they disappear. Jake would drive 70 miles to his house, where he would keep Jayme prisoner. For the next 3 months, investigators, the local population, everybody is looking for Jayme. And at the same time, people didn't have high hopes for her safe return. In the vast majority of cases like these where a child's been abducted, unfortunately they usually don't get home safe. And so the whole community is just devastated. This is gaining national attention. Everybody's looking for Jayme, and they can't find her. The whole time she was being held 70 miles away in Jake Patterson's cluttered kind of crummy house that was out in the middle of the woods. When they got to his house, he burned her clothes and his gloves and the duct tape. He gave her his sister's pajamas, and then he had her go under the bed, this bed he had in the house, and he barricaded her underneath the bed, and so she had a pillow and a blanket, and she was just underneath this bed. She basically was ignored by her captor, Jake Patterson. He puts her under the bed and he warns her that if she leave or try to escape, bad things are going to happen to her. And because she did witness him kill her parents, she knows he's capable of that, and he knows that she knows that he's capable of that. So she listened, and frankly, you can't blame her. She would go stretches of 8, 10, 12 hours of laying under the bed with no food, no water, no bathroom breaks. But ultimately, she was just ignored. There wasn't really a plan for what was going to happen when she got to the house. He just neglected her after 2 weeks where he was really on guard, and he told her that he was keeping a shotgun right outside her door in case anything went down with the police. When no one came looking for them, or when no one arrived at place, he was felt very confidently that he had gotten away with his crimes. Jayme would say he started having guests over, he had friends over, and he just told her, stay in the room, don't come out. And so for 87 days, she was just neglected. This poor girl was underneath the bed, just wondering what the heck's gonna happen, with obviously no time to grieve over the loss of her parents. Mr. Patterson really didn't leave the house. When he left one time to visit a grandparent, he was very aggressive in warning her that he would hurt her if she tried to leave. But for the most part, he didn't leave the house. You could tell in looking at this case that he became fairly confident that he was just going to get away with this. And so, he actually applied for a job. He left one morning to go to the interview, and it's kind of funny on a dark way. He wrote on his application that he's an honest, hard-working guy and under skills. He said he doesn't have much work experience, but he shows up to work and is a quick learner. And so he goes out to just get a job and go back to normal. When he left that morning, Jayme, who's under the bed, is thinking, it's all done. She's not going to be a captive anymore. And as soon as he leaves, she pushes aside the barricade of some weights that were there. She pushes it all outside. She runs out. She puts on his shoes, which are too big for her. She puts them on the wrong feet, and she runs out the door. She doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know anything, but she's gone. A woman was walking her dog around 4 p.m. Her name was Jeannie Nutter, and she sees this teenager girl who doesn't have a coat on. She doesn't have gloves. It's bitterly cold, and they're in the middle of Wisconsin, in the wintertime. She sees her coming towards her, and she can tell that something's wrong. And as she got closer, the girl said, I'm lost, I need help, my name is Jayme. The woman, Jeannie, immediately knew who it was. She lived in the area, and she had seen the posters up for Jayme. She knew exactly who she was. She gave her a big hug and held her and said, you know I've got you. I'm going to take care of you." And so, holding her closely, she brings her to a nearby neighbor's house. She said, "This is Jayme Closs. We have to call the police." The homeowners got their weapons out, and they guarded the door, and they huddled around Jayme while Jeannie called the police. And the police just didn't even know what to do. They were so shocked that they had found Jayme Closs. It actually took a minute for them to recognize what they were saying and how urgent it was, because at some point her captor, who can't be that far away, is going to recognize that she's not there anymore. And so they send the police. Luckily, Jayme's brought in and is saved. Certainly not from the emotional toll, but she's physically safe. Jake comes home from his big job interview, and he sees that Jayme's gone, and he sees footsteps leaving his property in the snow, and he goes out looking for her. And because this is the way things go sometimes, he was immediately rounded up by the police. They found him in his car, and as soon as he was pulled over, he didn't resist. In fact, he immediately identified himself and said that he did it. Jake Patterson was given a life sentence without the opportunity for parole, so he will die in prison. But to this day, no one really understands how this could have happened. Cases like this don't happen. If you were to make a movie out of this case, the viewers wouldn't really believe it, because the perpetrator in this case has no motive and has no history of committing any crimes. But as human beings, we can't accept that some stranger has the ability to randomly target a child and go as far as to kill their parents in front of them and hold them hostage when they have no criminal history and there's no red flags. He happened to see her getting on a bus, and that was all he needed. How could that possibly be the case? But in this unfortunate case, it just is. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. Please hit like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a nice day.